if you listen to nothing else than click here, you can feel the pain. And then you want to apply this, building a new website, or working with the website, and you have designers, you have developers, you have product managers, where this responsibility falls within the organization.
Yeah, and the true answer is that it falls at almost every level in an organization. So if you don't have the C-suite folks who are on board, who are providing resources and kind of the direction for making something accessible, then it's not going to happen, right? You're always going to come down to stuff. But within the kind of responsibility for the website, there are portions of accessibility. A lot of times I think people think about accessibility as something that only rests with the developers. And there is a portion that rests with developers, right? Does the menu that we're choosing, or the plugins that we're choosing to do this particular functionality, are they accessible? But there's a good portion of accessibility that rests with designers in terms of things like color contrast, sizes of font, the space for the clickable targets, all of those things that rest with designers. And then there's another whole part of the project accessibility that rests with the content creators. And when I say creators, I don't just mean like people who are putting it together, but the people who are putting the content into the site. And that often may not be a person that's either a developer or in a big organization, either a developer or a designer. It's somebody who it really is just receiving the content from somebody else and they're putting it into the site. But if they don't do that in an accessible way, it kind of can create barriers unintentionally. And so it's really kind of across the board. And the more people understand that, the more they can begin to think about how can we educate all of those different teams so that they don't keep creating new accessible content. I mean, that's really the first step, is really educating people to the point where they stop creating new inaccessible content, new barriers. And so if you can stop them creating new things, then you can begin to go back with, kind of deal with what's there before. And that the other piece of that is also that accessibility is never attained. It's never a checkbox that you're done, because anytime the website changes, whether that's new content is added or not, it doesn't happen often, but occasionally when a plugin is updated or WordPress is updated even, right? That can introduce new barriers. And so it's something that you have to be vigilant about over time.
With that checking off a checkbox, this reminds me of security compliance. And there are platforms which helps you maintain the security, or you can have SOC 2 certification one time, or across like 3 months, and then am I compliant? No, you got to. It's like it's a way of doing things instead of an event on a timeline.
Yeah, that's a great analogy. The other great analogy is SEO, right? You can, I think it's a good analogy because there's a kind of basic level of best practices for SEO, but then you can kind of begin to keep working at this to keep improving it, but it's something that you have to keep paying attention to over time. So, but security is good too. I like that.
Yeah, like at the same time, I'm thinking if it's not a checkbox to tick, it doesn't sound very promising. It's like always not. I don't want to use the word burden, but it's always something that you have to ask. You do this, and then you have to. Did we did we go through a checklist for accessibility? Like another layer of doing things within business as usual, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
But we've already done that. I mean, think about when we started paying attention to making sure that websites were mobile responsive on different sizes of screens. We just do that now. That's just a part of our process, right? Is making sure that as we're making changes we're building sites, but as we're making changes to them, that we're paying attention to how it looks on mobile as well as desktop, maybe even as well as the big monitors. So it's just a part of building websites today that we have to keep paying attention to. And it does become, I think it's not an undue burden, really. I mean, it's really just thinking more about your users as you're putting this all together. So yeah, it becomes second nature.
I'm thinking about this from a perspective that with the mobile, a lot of stuff is done automatically by the technology. With more and more mature technology, all of those solo developers, indie makers building JavaScript libraries, templating libraries to make your life as a developer easier. A lot of stuff for the mobile is done automatically. Like screens fold nicely unless you do something crazy. 90% of stuff is good enough or very good enough, let's say, not to pay attention to it. I'm curious if this is going to be with the accessibility too. Is it also achievable through automation, let's say?
Um, Not at the moment, but there are some good tools that you can use. So one of them is the accessibility checker plugin from Equalize Digital, and there's a free version of that in the WordPress repository directory. And it is automated tools will find about 30% of issues. So you just need to know that
Doesn't
anytime
sound
you're
great. 30% is not great.
I know, yeah, that's where we are now. I mean, I think we may get to a point where but it is not in the foreseeable. It's not in the quick future. So we're going to have to learn to do this better. But use that automation when you can. Right, 30% is better than zero. And so using a tool like the Equalize Digital plugin, but also and so it primarily and those automated tools are primarily focused on content. And of course, that's the thing that's happening all the time that's introducing new issues. And so, while it's only 30%, it is finding the 30% that are most likely to be created as you're kind of making those day-to-day changes on the website. And so that plugin introduces a screen in the page and post editor, kind of down in the bottom, just like like the SEO plugins do at the bottom. And it gives you feedback about what you need to do. The paid version of the plugin will run scans on everything you've ever done, all the content created before, if you without having to open every page and post. But uh, there's some great tools when there are a lot of content creators, right? And so that's a piece. Like if you are running a big organization and you have multiple content creators, you have to also track who's creating inaccessible, who's creating
Who's
barriers, right?
notorious
and
for
and
that?
how do you hold them accountable to doing that? Because it can be costly to the business. The business has those fines for the European Accessibility Act can be 60,000 euros, 100,000 euros. It can cost way more than that for U.S. businesses if they get caught. So making sure that you're training your folks, but that they're also kind of doing it. And so finding some tools to kind of work with. Use the tools when you can. There are some tools for there. There are people that are working with AI generated alt text. And that example that we've been talking about, where you've got just a massive number of images that are missing alt text, and it can be a great tool to generate the drafts, but you absolutely want to have a human being read and check every one, because um, if you think about how those large language models are learning, right? The alt text that's out there currently is not all that great. And so, those kind of large language models are not, they're not magic. They're just gathering from what's out there, but what's out there currently is not great. And so, that's one. Two, they hallucinate, and sometimes they're just really wrong, and that can be embarrassing and bad for your business, right? And including some that are like really, really politically wrong, just wrong. And so you want to take some great care with that and just have human beings check those. Uh, There are people who talk about, it won't be long before all of us will be seeing such personalized content, and the browser will know how to adapt it. We're not anywhere near that. Not in a way that's meaningful for people with disabilities at the moment.